It is the year 2076 on Friday, 20 hours. For the megacity of Tsukahara, it was another ordinary cycle, but ordinary no longer meant peace. Humanity had already endured 3 global wars. The artificial intelligence revolution followed. Between 2028 and 2038, over 1 billion jobs disappeared. Entire economic systems collapsed. Governments failed. Conflict became systemic. Famine emerged. Meteorological cataclysms destabilized entire continents. Energy infrastructures collapsed in 2043, leaving entire cities without electricity. Pandemics followed. At first, they were classified as simple respiratory infections. They were not. By the time humanity understood what was happening, reality itself had already changed. People born before 2020 could no longer recognize the world they lived in. By 2050, stabilization was achieved, but not through recovery, through transformation. Humanity created systems beyond conventional science. A quantum supercomputer fused with artificial intelligence, a system capable of processing all known information structures, generating probabilistic outcomes with near-perfect accuracy, a cognition beyond human comprehension. In 2044, after the final global collapse phase, nations abandoned capitalism. They unified. Japan, France, Spain, United States, China, Russia, Brazil, Romania, Germany. They formed a single alliance, the quantum solution. For 6 years, the brightest minds worked without pause. Their objective was simple: infinite energy, infinite intelligence. A city formed around it. A protective perimeter became permanent habitation. Tsukahara was born. By 2055, cancer was easier to cure than influenza had been in 2010. By 2076, humanity called it stability, but stability was not peace. It was control. Humanity was never perfect. Even in abundance, conflict persisted. Even in utopia, instinct demanded freedom. In 2065, the quantum solution did something that changed the entire course of human history. It gave people real possibilities to improve their biology. Now in 2076, every human can potentially live a comfortable lifespan of over 160 years. Inside a futuristic bar in Tsukahara, where light almost seemed to avoid his face and where the dancing women were more AI robots than real humans, designed to consume credits from every client, Zayden Morales was sitting there, drinking whiskey. A man around 25 years old, red eyes like fire, black hair, a highly athletic body dressed in a somewhat elegant futuristic style. At one moment, almost instinctively, he looked toward the door, and in that fraction of a second, he had a reaction that should have been impossible for any normal human. A small metallic object was moving toward him. At that velocity, it would have killed an ordinary human instantly. Zayden caught the object with his bare hands, and when he looked at it, he saw that it was a bullet with his name engraved on it. When he looked to see who shot it, he was not surprised at all. A man with blue and black hair, muscles like he spent his entire life only in the gym, a smile that looked almost too natural, and an arrogance that fit him perfectly. That man was Leon Stryker, a David. And surprisingly, someone we now find out is a friend of Zayden. Leon calmly sits next to Zayden, as if his memory span only lasts 2 seconds, already forgetting that he just tried to shoot him in the head. Zayden looks at him and says, "You hesitated again." Leon looks at him and replies, "It felt appropriate to use regular bullets, considering you were drinking." Zayden replies, "My immunity doesn't allow me to stay drunk for more than 2 minutes, no matter how much I drink. And after that, I'm fully sober, as if I never drank anything." Leon looks at the whiskey glass and says, "Maybe 2 minutes of freedom are worth more than an eternity in captivity." At that moment, Zayden places his hand on a device that looks more advanced than anything inside a nuclear power plant from modern times. It is only a card reader, but in 2076, credits are money and ownership is guaranteed by credits embedded directly into your DNA structure. After paying, Zayden leaves without looking back, but on his way to the door, Leon calls out, "Yo, Zayden, be careful. One day people like us will disappear. We should stay united." On his way home, Zayden discovers a box next to a trash container. For reasons chosen by the universe, or maybe his own limitless curiosity, he opens it. Inside, he sees an object he does not recognize, a small device like an ancient phone, and inside it, a charger. Zayden is shocked. In his entire life, he has never seen something like this, but he has heard and studied them in history lessons. Since ancient times, energy comes from external sources. Batteries are earth and solar-based, and communication is done through telepathic chips. Even though he does not know how to use such a device, he decides to take it home. After discarding the charger, using technological methods indistinguishable from magic, he charges the phone to 100% in 25 seconds. Then, using information from the source accessed through his neural chip, he learns how to open it. The phone takes 4 to 5 seconds to start after pressing the button, and for Zayden, that already feels like eternity. In 2076, any simple computation happens in 0.1 seconds, complex ones in 0.3 seconds. Every citizen is trained to operate technologies that modern scientists from today would study for years before understanding. But this simple phone is more complicated than anything he has ever seen. He looks at it and says, "Open main page, hologram." Nothing happens. Then he says, "Execute greeting operation." Still nothing. Frustration appears on his face. He accesses the source and asks, "What is the access command?" The source responds, not through voice, but through electromagnetic impulse, directly stimulating his brain and generating the answer. There is no access command. It works via touchscreen input, or possibly a legacy AI model that opens applications by name. Zayden, not knowing the AI's name, decides to operate it manually and opens the gallery. Inside, he finds pictures. A boy appears in most of them. He quickly concludes this was the previous owner. He finds screenshots of conversations, and his sharp mind immediately understands what he is seeing, even though his face already shows boredom. In one message, someone calls the previous owner Katsumi. After analyzing the device further, he finds the full name, Katsumi Onoruki. His nature would have made him a perfect detective if he had been born in 2010. He asks the source, information about Katsumi Onoruki. He was over 18 years old in 2026. The source responds in less than 0.1 seconds, Katsumi Onoruki. Anomalous activity. Former underground fighting champion. Corrupted fiscal activities. No structured data available. IQ error. Information missing. Status unknown. Zayden looks at the photos again and says, "This guy, a underground fighting champion?" He is impressed that someone who looks so fragile could be so strong. He puts the phone aside. At that moment, a hologram opens in front of him. A boy appears, overweight, slightly feminine features, clothes closer our times, colorful hair, and a pink heart on his face, unclear if it is a tattoo or something drawn in a mirror. His name is Lucian Woker, an individual who, despite appearances, has a very sharp mind. He immediately notices Zayden is not in a good mental state and asks if he took his Zenith today. Zenith, the happiness pill developed in 2060 to suppress violent impulses and maintain societal order. Zayden, visibly irritated, says, "What the hell do you want, Woker? Since when do you care so much about my mental health?" Lucian replies, "Everyone should care, especially me, since I'm your friend. I don't want you to end up like Leon and start a terrorist movement." Zayden replied, "I'm not going to start a terrorist organization. I'm actually starting to get angry if you keep bothering me with all your nonsense." Lucian responded with a puzzled tone. "Why would you get angry?" In the year 2076, skipping one's relaxation and happiness regulation pills for multiple consecutive days was considered a serious criminal offense. Even minor uncontrolled emotional reactions in public could classify an individual as a potential violator of this law. Zayden fully understood his friend's concern. It was normal. In these times, not only military personnel were allowed exemptions, and even then, only during strictly regulated physical training cycles. Lucian noticed the tension between them had escalated, so he decided to invite him out into the city to relax, together with him and a girl who apparently also wanted to meet him. Zayden, showing no interest, replied, "I'm really not thinking about finding a neural partner right now." Apparently, this was the new term for girlfriend in 2076. However, Lucian assured him that this particular person was someone he would definitely want to meet. He described her with enthusiasm. Her facial symmetry was near perfect, her mind sharp enough to solve equations that Lucian himself found shocking, and, not least of all, she possessed level 5 augmented genes, just like Zayden. Zayden fell silent, still uninterested, until he heard that last detail. He finally reacted. "Level 5? How is that possible? I thought only Leon and I were still at that level." Lucian smiled. "In that case, you'll definitely want to come. From what she says, there are more of you, and there are even levels beyond 5. Logically, this information should have concerned Zayden. Instead, he felt something entirely different. For the first time in a long while, he experienced something pure. Ecstasy, raw, sincere, unfiltered ecstasy. The next day, after occasionally glancing at the mysterious phone and playing through all the games left by its previous owner, Zayden decided to go out and accept Lucian's invitation. At the same bar where he had once caught a bullet with his bare hands, his friend was already waiting, along with a woman whose beauty could make even today's top supermodels feel obsolete. In the future, physical appearance was no longer a major challenge for either men or women. Over 70% of the population possessed what, in earlier eras, would have been classified as a perfect body. Lucian belonged to the remaining 30%, not due to genetic limitations, but because he did no physical training whatsoever and consumed industrial quantities of sweets, enough to bankrupt an entire bakery chain in under 50 minutes. Still, beneath his soft physique and almost feminine facial traits, he carried level 2 augmented genes. If Lucien had lived in 2015, he could have bench-pressed over 700 pounds, approximately 317 kilograms. He would have shocked scientists worldwide and become a global sensation, especially considering his, let's say, pastry-like appearance. Most individuals in this era ranged between level 0.8 and level 1 gene augmentation. Yet even in a world where beauty and physical perfection had been normalized, where expectations had already reached extreme thresholds, the woman standing in front of Zayden surpassed all of them. Her name was Elira Kova. As she approached the bar, her presence alone bent the atmosphere of the room. Her hair, naturally grown in a blue-violet hue, impossible to classify as artificial. Her perfect proportions, her posture, everything about her formed a lethal combination of biological optimization and something that could not be mathematically explained. Zayden could not help himself. Something inside him, primal, instinctive, almost animalistic, surfaced without warning. Even he was surprised by it. He thought, what is this? I'm not even linked to her via Neuralink, but I feel like I want to touch her. This is extremely abnormal. Lucien immediately noticed and asked if he was all right. In this era, no one kissed anymore. Traditional physical attraction had largely disappeared. The only accepted form of intimacy was neural pairing, selecting a partner and connecting via Neuralink. The connection was stabilized by the central system between their implanted chips, producing pleasure directly in the mind rather than the body. Children were exclusively born in laboratories, and male genetic material was extracted through methods that would have shocked even the most advanced scientists of earlier centuries, rendering every modern anatomy textbook obsolete. Lucien looked at Zayden, then suddenly said, "Zayden, please don't tell me I've read about this." Zayden snapped. "You've read about what, Lucien?" Already sensing that Lucien was about to say something that would change everything, for him and for everyone in the bar. Lucien lowered his voice. "I think it's—" Zayden interrupted again. "What is it? Say it already." Lucien finally whispered, "Love." The entire bar froze, a concept so abstract, so obsolete, so foreign to them that it bordered on cognitive paradox. These were people capable of surviving bullet impacts, sprinting at speeds close to a cheetah, performing complex calculations instantly, even communicating through quantum AI-linked telepathic systems. And yet, the idea of love was something entirely alien. Zayden stared forward, completely serious. "Lucien, that's impossible." Elarakova had been silently observing the entire exchange. She did not intervene until Zayden declared it impossible. Then she rose slightly from her seat. Her tone was calm, but sharp, calculated to appear casual, yet deliberately attention-grabbing, as if she were pulling speech from another era entirely. Her words hit the room like a tsunami. They would become a topic of discussion in that bar for many nights to come. She looked directly at Zayden. "Impossible? Why? What's wrong with me? Is it really that strange to want to touch the person you like? I can literally see your physical reactions. Maybe even some you don't want me to notice. To us, it might sound ordinary, but in that era, in that moment, in front of those people, it was unthinkable. No one had ever even spoken like that before. The shock was absolute. All except one person, an elderly man in the back, roughly 80 years old, who lifted his beer and shouted, "Kiss that girl, you idiot." Then, like a broken record, he began repeating, "Kiss, kiss, kiss." Elira, now face to face with Zayden, smiled and said, "What are you waiting for? A formal invitation? You're a real man, aren't you? Level 5 augmented genes, theoretically bulletproof. Are you seriously afraid of a kiss?" Without fully understanding why, the younger crowd in the bar, boys, girls, people who had only read about physical interaction in ancient texts, began to echo the old man. One voice at first, then another, then another. The crowd effect took over. Within seconds, the entire bar was chanting, "Kiss, kiss, kiss." Zayden's hand trembled. He tried to reach out, just to touch her, even slightly, but she suddenly burst into laughter. Elira leaned back and said, "Seriously, Lucien? This is your legendary friend, the dangerous one, the outlaw, and he's afraid to touch me." Zayden, overwhelmed by shame and confusion, snapped back, "What is this nonsense? What are all of you chanting? Have you lost your minds?" The entire bar went silent. Less than 10 seconds later, 4 humanoid security units entered through the door. Each one was capable of subduing even level 3 augmented humans. Zayden thought to himself, "Perfect. Now I'm definitely getting boxed in." The soldiers approached Zayden, while he slowly raised his hands and asked calmly, "Did I do something wrong, dear officers?" One of the AI enforcement units spoke, not with the cold robotic tone people imagined in movies from 1999, but with a perfectly human voice designed to reduce public discomfort. The source has detected psychological activity consistent with anger. Combined with your vocal reaction, this constitutes a criminal offense. Zayden immediately replied, "This is a misunderstanding. What I was experiencing were emotions. I wasn't shouting out of rage. I simply wanted to be heard. I had no intention of harming anyone." The AI unit scanned him. One of them responded, "The source confirms elevated anger levels during the vocal escalation. However, it also confirms that your statement regarding lack of harmful intent is truthful. This is your second violation. Financial penalty, 4,000 credits." At that moment, Lucian stepped forward. "Officers, I do not wish to interfere with protocol, but 4,000 credits is an enormous amount of money." One of the robots pushed Lucian away. Unfortunately, the force calibration of the machine had been optimized for Zayden's physiological profile. What followed horrified the entire bar. Lucian felt as though he had been struck by a high-speed train. His body was launched directly into the wall. The impact generated vibrations strong enough to produce what felt like a minor earthquake across the street outside. Lucian collapsed. His skull had split open, blood pouring from his nose, his condition immediately appearing catastrophic. Elira spoke only once. "Zayden, don't do it." None of the AI units attempted to check Lucian's condition. Their mission parameters were simple: enforce the law. No intervention permitted. Elira spoke again, this time more firmly, yet somehow carrying traces of both understanding and desperation simultaneously. "Zayden, please, don't do it." From the moment Zayden witnessed what happened, he became completely silent. Not a single sound escaped him. But his face looked as though something inside it was about to detonate. Only then, in that exact moment, did he finally understand what true anger actually was. Inside his mind, thoughts collided violently. That should have been me against that wall. I'm the one who constantly breaks the rules. I'm the one who never fits into this world. I'm the one with animal impulses who almost kissed Elira earlier. That should have been me, not him, not Lucian, the one who follows the rules, the one who always makes sure I'm okay, the one who stopped me from becoming a terrorist like Leon, and yet for my actions, I receive a fine while he might be dead simply because he tried to help me. This is the perfect system. This is the paradise of safety. No, I reject this. In that instant, Zayden exploded. "You piles of metal garbage and rusted scrap. You want a show for the source to admire?" Elira stared at him in shock. Yet something primal inside her generated emotions that could only be described as contradiction. Then Zayden did something nobody expected. Perhaps something nobody had ever seen before. He punched one of the AI units directly in the head. The machine was completely obliterated. Circuits, alloy fragments, quantum components, technology so advanced that a single piece reaching our era would be worth more than entire corporations. Scattered across the floor of the bar, people stared in absolute shock. Some panicked, others, surprisingly, looked intrigued. They experienced conflicting emotions toward what they were witnessing. The old man from earlier, still holding his beer, suddenly began screaming from the back of the room, "Fight! Fight! Fight!" Laughing so hard, tears rolled down his face. What happened next shocked even Zayden himself, exactly like before. At first, one weak voice joined in. Fight, then another, then several more. Less than 5 seconds later, the entire bar was screaming, "Fight! Fight! Fight!" And Zayden smiled, while tearing the AI units apart. Piece by piece, Elira Kova's cheeks had turned red. At that moment, she looked exactly the way Zayden had looked when he first saw her. She whispered softly, almost as if she wanted to throw herself into his arms. "So this is Zayden Morales, the real Zayden Morales." Zayden destroyed AI units capable of overpowering level 3 augmented humans in under 30 seconds, but now the situation had become catastrophic. Elira looked at him and asked, "Do you realize what you've done, Zayden?" Zayden stared at his trembling hands. I don't know, The old man interrupted him. "You did what had to be done. We all saw what happened. And if anyone asks me what I think, I'd rather die than say you're guilty, kid." Zayden looked at the old man in surprise, then toward the others inside the bar. Each face carried mixed emotions. Finally, one person stood up and spoke. "Yeah, they attacked Lucien. He always followed the rules. He only ever helped people." That individual walked toward the destroyed robot and stomped on its shattered head. Then another person joined, then another. Slowly but inevitably, every single person inside the bar stood up and began kicking the remains of the AI units. Lucien, barely able to stand, rose while trembling violently. "What the hell are you doing, Zayden? Run already and leave me here. I'm alive. I'm innocent. They'll probably give me free credits to keep quiet. But you attacked AI enforcement units. You need to run. Right now." Then it appeared. A BMW E46. A vehicle so ancient it could either be considered worthless scrap metal or an artifact of immeasurable historical value. The car stopped in front of the bar. A male voice shouted from inside, "Yo, Zayden, didn't know you started recycling old metal." Zayden immediately recognized the voice. "So it's you, Leon. What are you doing here?" Leon glanced at the bleeding Lucian, completely ignored him, then immediately noticed Elira. "Whoa, who the hell is that? Where did you find a girl that hot? Didn't expect you to get yourself a real girlfriend and destroy source property in the same evening." Zayden instantly clarified, "She's not my girlfriend." But Elira immediately intervened. "That's true, mainly because I haven't been properly courted or asked if I want to be his girlfriend yet." Leon burst into uncontrollable laughter. "Incredible. I feel like I'm inside one of those forbidden movies I keep hidden at the base." Then he yelled, "Yo, Zayden, get in the damn car with your girlfriend already, unless you both want prison time." Zayden immediately jumped into the vehicle. Elira moved to follow him, but Zayden stopped her. "I'm sorry, it's too dangerous. I know this started terribly. But if I never see you again, just know the only thing that truly bothered me," he hesitated, "was that you were right. Yeah, I wanted to kiss you." Then Elira did something witnesses at the scene could barely comprehend. She pressed her lips against his and kissed him, passionately, hungrily. It was their first kiss, not just between them, their first kiss in general, and for almost everyone present. It was the first kiss they had ever witnessed in their lives. The old man obviously didn't count. Neither did Leon, who had already done practically every forbidden thing imaginable. Still, even Leon was shocked. The street surveillance systems recorded everything: the kiss, the fight, the escape. At that exact moment, the source classified Zayden Morales as a level 3 global criminal threat. Only one category existed above that: level 4, direct aggression toward the source itself. After the kiss, Zayden escaped with Leon. Meanwhile, Elira waved goodbye as though watching her husband depart for war. And strangely enough, that analogy perfectly matched what was coming next. Peace had to be preserved, which meant the source would never allow an individual like Zayden Morales to roam freely through society. Inside the car, after hearing the full story, Leon stared at him for several seconds before speaking. So let me get this straight. You saw a sexy woman because you stopped taking your emotional suppression pills for 2 weeks. You had a physical reaction. You got emotional, and then you started destroying robots and inspiring an entire bar into borderline terrorist behavior. Zayden sighed. Yeah, if you simplify it, that's basically what happened. Leon exploded into laughter. Ever since hiding from society like a rat inside the underground sectors, he had not heard a story this entertaining. To him, this sounded like the beginning of something beautiful. A revolution. Zayden looked at him. What is a revolution? Leon looked at him, then burst into laughter once again. He already knew he had a tremendous amount of work ahead of him with Zayden, but the potential was obvious. Leon glanced toward him and asked, "Remember when we were kids, Zayden? Our game, the one only we could play?" Zayden nodded. "Yeah, I remember. Aren't we still playing it? You literally shoot at me every time we meet." Leon immediately corrected him. "A game requires 2 players. You stopped playing with me a long time ago, but I respected the tradition." Zayden frowned. "Where are you going with this?" Leon smiled like a complete psychopath. "I'm saying that from now on, a lot more people are entering our game." His smile widened. "And we are not allowed to lose our game." After driving for some time, in an isolated district of the city, Leon owned a small apartment there, acquired during a high-stakes poker match years ago. Zayden looked around. "We're not going to the base." Leon leaned back casually. "Patience. I brought you here for a very important reason." He pointed toward the apartment. "I offered this tiny little house to someone special, someone who can make that thing inside your brain disappear." Zayden stared at him in confusion. Then realization hit him. His entire body froze. "You mean, remove my chip?" He immediately shouted. "No chance." Leon remained perfectly calm. "In that case, you'll be found within 20 minutes. I've blurred your signal as much as possible using quantum interference devices." Zayden clenched both his fists and his teeth. If he did this, he would become like Leon, a fugitive. In the next few seconds, he reached the only logical conclusion available. "Okay, let's go." Leon walked toward the door and knocked. Zayden looked genuinely shocked. "Since when do you knock on doors?" Leon looked offended. "What? Yo, Zayden. Didn't expect you to think that badly of me." The door opened, and once again, Zayden was met with another absurdly beautiful woman. Perfect physique, perfect facial symmetry, a body engineered by evolution itself to destroy concentration. Eyes as blue as the ocean. Immediately, Zayden felt the sweating begin again, especially now that he had already developed a taste for women. Leon looked toward him and smirked. "My robot-destroying friend Zayden, this is..." The woman interrupted him immediately. "Ayumi. Valera Ayumi. Level 4 augmented genes." Then she looked directly at Zayden. "And you haven't taken your medication in quite some time, have you?" Zayden blinked. "How do you know that?" She answered in a way no man truly wants to hear. "Because you're sweating like you swallowed 40 chili peppers and staring at my body like you've just witnessed a divine miracle." Then she shrugged. "In short, you're weird." Zayden became slightly irritated. Unfortunately, he also knew she was completely correct. Leon immediately stepped in. "Yo, you two, relax." Then he pointed dramatically toward Ayumi. "Ayumi, if you do me the honor of taking care of my friend, I promise next time I'll arrive with flowers." Ayumi rolled her eyes. "Spare me your nonsense, Leon. Get inside already. I don't want AI units showing up at my door." Together, Leon and Zayden entered the apartment. But what shocked Zayden was not Ayumi herself. It was the technology this slightly arrogant but undeniably beautiful woman possessed, inside an apartment smaller than 35 square meters, scientific equipment worth unimaginable amounts even in 2076, molecular analyzers, magnetic discrepancy detectors, quantum readers, and sitting directly on her desk, a fully functional miniature particle accelerator used purely as decoration. Ayumi looked toward Zayden and said casually, "Take your shirt off and sit on the bed." Zayden obeyed. Meanwhile, Leon stood nearby, smoking his third cigarette. Within 5 minutes, Ayumi connected several advanced intravenous systems to Zayden's body. Then, with movements so precise they appeared supernatural, she put him to sleep, using a single injection to the neck. The needle moved so fast, Zayden never even saw it. Only afterward did he feel the exhaustion consume him, and eventually he surrendered himself to fate. Ayumi, with movements so mechanically precise they bordered on divine neurosurgical perfection, began the cerebral operation on Zayden. The procedure had to be completed in less than 10 minutes. Leon had witnessed this operation countless times before, yet every single time he remained disturbed by the fluidity of her movements and by the complete absence of emotion on her face, not even hesitation, not even stress. It was as if her nervous system had transcended human emotional interference entirely. And because Leon knew himself far too well, because he knew that sooner or later he would say something unbelievably stupid while staring at her from behind and admiring her figure, he decided to step outside for a cigarette instead. He could already imagine the disaster scenario inside his head. I say some dumb shit to this woman. She gets annoyed for half a second, loses concentration for one microscopic moment, and we accidentally microwave Zayden's brain into quantum soup. Outside, a massive grin appeared across Leon's face, a smile capable of meaning 1,000 different things. Was he happy that Zayden, his childhood friend, was finally walking the same path he had walked years ago? Or was he simply thinking about the perfect flower shop where he could buy Ayumi a bouquet elegant enough to survive her terrifying personality? Nobody knew. But at the exact moment, he became lost inside his own thoughts. He heard an arrogant voice nearby, a voice so absurdly confident it almost sounded like his own. Dante. Dante was a handsome man, even by the impossible standards of biological augmentation society. Blue and purple hair, perfect blue eyes that looked computationally engineered rather than genetically inherited. A body sculpted like an ancient war deity, redesigned by futuristic military biotechnology. Leon. What a surprise. I thought you died in a ditch somewhere, or at least hoped you did. Leon slowly looked toward him. Well, well, well. If it isn't Dante Cruz Moreno himself. To what do I owe this unexpected visit? Dante scanned Leon carefully, from head to toe, with predatory calmness. Nobody sent me, just taking a walk tonight. Thought I'd say hello. Leon sighed. Can we skip this part? I'm kinda tired. Dante suddenly burst into laughter. Ha 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 ha. What happened? I thought suspense was your favorite hobby. Leon's eyes sharpened instantly. Dante, if you want to fight, then let's fight already. Dante grinned so widely it looked physically painful for the laws of anatomy. Good idea. A little evening exercise helps with sleep. And then he attacked. Leon flicked his cigarette away with absurd velocity. The moment it left his fingers, the cigarette accelerated with the ballistic speed of a high-caliber anti-material round, but Dante casually caught it between his teeth, turned it, took a drag, exhaled smoke, then attacked again. Leon dodged the first left jab. A right straight followed immediately after. A perfect 1-2 combination from Dante, executed with enough force to shatter reinforced combat titanium. Leon evaded both strikes, noticed Dante's liver exposed for 0.2 seconds, and instantly launched a left hook. The impact generated a shockwave powerful enough to make every vehicle within a 50-meter radius scream with metallic vibration. Dante suddenly pretended to be hurt, pretended to collapse, and Leon fell directly into the trap. Leon attempted a knee strike toward Dante's skull, but Dante slipped his head aside with monstrous precision, caught Leon's leg, and swept him using his own right leg. Leon crashed into the asphalt so violently that his body carved a trench into the street. If a scientist from the 2020s had seen the impact crater, they would have assumed somebody had fallen out of an airplane at terminal velocity. A battle between monsters at their maximum output could flatten everything around them within a 100-meter radius. Leon instantly jumped back to his feet. Dante smirked. Enough. We had fun. Leon wiped blood from his mouth and laughed. What are you talking about? We barely started. Dante gestured around them. Leon looked. The previous impact had launched enough debris through the air to completely destroy 8 parked vehicles and erase half the structure of a nearby house. Leon clicked his tongue. Yeah, maybe you're right, but I still didn't lose. Dante shrugged. Whatever helps you sleep. I'm leaving before the robots arrive. He took a few steps away, then suddenly stopped. Oh, right. Enzo Corvin is already hunting your friend. What was his name again? Yes. Zayden. The guy you always claimed could beat me. The moment Leon heard that name, his expression froze. Enzo Corvin, that bastard is level 6. Dante made a childish hand gesture as if he had absolutely no idea what Leon was talking about. Then, with a single jump, he launched himself over 20 meters into the air and landed effortlessly on the roof of a building. Seconds later, he vanished into the night with a speed that made modern cheetahs look motionless. It was almost as if the darkness itself absorbed his existence and made him part of it. Meanwhile, Zayden's operation had finally ended. His eyes slowly opened. Ayumi smiled softly. Welcome back, Zayden. Zayden looked visibly confused. Before the operation, she had behaved with extreme hostility. Now she was smiling. Why are you smiling at me? He asked, as if witnessing extraterrestrial life for the first time. Ayumi crossed her arms calmly. Because before surgery, I become hyper-focused. After a successful operation, my mood improves. If you dislike it, don't worry, I get annoyed again, very quickly. Zayden gestured as if he did not believe her. Then he said something he absolutely should not have said. I'd like to see you smile more often. It suits you. At that exact moment, Leon opened the door and heard everything. The way he stared at Zayden made it look like he had forgotten every year of friendship they had ever shared. Ayumi immediately blushed. Zayden panicked. Leon, this is a misunderstanding. I mean, you misunderstood. Leon suddenly burst into laughter. Both Zayden and Ayumi looked at him in complete confusion. Leon grabbed his forehead dramatically. I cannot believe this. You're actually unbelievable, Zayden. You smelled a tiny bit of female perfume, and now you want all women for yourself. You bastard, Zayden snapped. How can you even say that? It was a misunderstanding. Believe me, Leon shrugged proudly. Whatever. Ayumi only wants me anyway. She just doesn't know it yet. Ayumi simply laughed quietly, as if the situation had somehow resolved itself naturally, and adding further commentary would only make Leon's delusion evolve further. Then, Leon's expression changed instantly. The atmosphere in the room transformed with terrifying speed. We need to talk. His tone became deadly serious. The temperature in the room felt like it had dropped 10 degrees instantly. Both Ayumi and Zayden waited silently. Finally, Leon spoke. "Enzo Corvin." Zayden frowned. "Who the hell is that?" At the sound of the name, Ayumi's expression did not visibly change, but Zayden noticed something else. Her hands were trembling. Not violently, controlled, minimal, but enough for him to realize she was fighting an internal psychological war of catastrophic proportions, just to hide how deeply terrified she truly was. Leon looked directly at Zayden. "Zayden, remember what we were told as children, right? That there are 5 levels of human augmentation." Zayden nodded. "Yeah, though Lucian once implied there might be something above that." Leon immediately exploded. "That nerd? How the hell would he know?" "Forget it. Doesn't matter. The point is, we were told we are the peak of evolution, the summit of the mountain, but apparently that was a lie." Zayden answered confidently, "It doesn't matter. If we work together, we can beat anyone." Leon immediately shattered that fantasy. "No, we can't." His voice became colder. "From level 6 onward, augmented humans possess something beyond us." Zayden instinctively assumed he meant greater speed, greater strength, greater durability. Leon understood exactly what he was thinking. "That's not what I mean. It's not just strength, not speed, not mobility, not IQ, not cardiovascular output." Leon's eyes darkened. "These people possess an energy called Kael." Zayden blinked. "Kael, what the hell is that?" And then, without either of them noticing, in a moment that would permanently traumatize both Zayden and Leon for the rest of their lives, Ayumi coughed blood. Both of them turned toward her. What they saw next would haunt them every night forever. An image burned permanently into their retinas. Ayumi Valera, Level 4, Augmented Genetics. The genius surgeon helping those who followed Leon's path escape the control chip system, was standing there with a sword impaled directly through her chest. Leon screamed so violently that every window in the building exploded simultaneously. Zayden moved instantly toward her, but right before reaching her, a boot smashed directly into his face. Enzo, long black hair reaching his shoulders. Black eyes, devoid of emotional signal patterns. A specialized combat armor system engineered specifically for the extermination of biologically augmented humans. Weapons covering nearly every visible surface of his body. And strangely, his face looked almost ordinary, like someone who could have existed back in the 2020s. Zayden rose immediately, blood running from his nose. "You piece of shit! You came for me! Why did you do this?" But before he could react further, Leon was already moving. His fist stopped less than half a centimeter away from Enzo's face, and Enzo caught it effortlessly in less than a fraction of a second. Then he spoke in a cold, mechanical voice. "Subject 42123, Leon.terrorist, Level 4, criminal with Level 5 genetic enhancement markers, actions threatening the stability of the source detected. Objective." He tightened his grip around Leon's fist. "Elimination." Leon, filled with absolute rage, tried to strike Enzo with his free arm. But Enzo caught that arm too, as if stopping 2 genetically enhanced monsters simultaneously required no more effort than holding shopping bags. Zayden rose from the ground as if gravity itself had failed to affect him, and sprinted toward Ayumi at maximum speed. Ayumi was weakening rapidly. The sword Enzo used had been poisoned. Worse, the attack contained a massive concentration of Kael, the transcendent energy possessed only by those augmented beyond Level 5. The strike had completely destroyed her internal stability. Zayden dropped beside her instantly. "Ayumi, please, you'll be okay." You'll heal. You're strong." Ayumi smiled weakly. For the first time since he met her, she looked human. "You seem kind, Zayden. I'm sorry we never had the chance to truly know each other." Then, she closed her eyes. Irreversible. Absolute dead. Zayden had never witnessed death like this before. Not even normal funerals existed anymore in modern society. Humanity had optimized mortality into sterile statistical procedures. But this was real death. Violent, ugly final. Leon turned his head mid-fight and shouted, "Zayden, get Ayumi out of here. We need to—" Then he saw him. Zayden's face. The fury. Ayumi's lifeless body beside him. And in that instant, Leon completely lost his mind. Something inside his body activated. Unexpectedly, Leon became twice as fast. His modified cells received a catastrophic biological impulse. His arms accelerated beyond conventional enhanced human perception. But even then, Enzo was still superior. And Leon's technique instantly collapsed. He no longer fought with combinations. No discipline, no rhythm, no structure, only rage. Pure rage. Zayden looked toward him and screamed, "Leon, what the hell are you doing? Weren't you the one who taught me how important technique is? Ayumi believed in us." Leon's eyes widened slightly. "Thanks, Zayden. I needed that." He clenched his chest violently. "This power is new. It's tearing me apart from the inside." But what was tearing Leon apart was not an organ, not muscle tissue, not nerves. No physical structure could properly define what he was feeling. The closest existing human word was soul. Kael was not simply energy. It was the synchronization between the body and the soul itself. And apparently, the trigger for Leon's awakening had been the overwhelming emotional pain he experienced the moment Ayumi died. Now, Leon fought differently, completely differently. Enzo launched a right high kick toward Leon's skull. But Leon blocked it with both forearms and instantly countered with an inside low kick. The impact destabilized Enzo's balance slightly. Not enough for a normal opponent, but enough for Leon. Years of combat experience immediately warned Enzo that Leon's body positioning indicated an incoming knee strike. Enzo raised both arms to block the knee, the exact instant he saw Leon's leg move. But the knee never came. Enzo realized something was wrong in approximately 0.5 seconds. Unfortunately, there were only 0.1 seconds remaining before Leon's Kael-infused fist connected directly with his temple. Boom. After that punch, Enzo was sent flying straight into the wall of the apartment building. He rose instantly, eyes locking onto his palm as blood dripped from his nose. For a fraction of a second, Enzo froze. Then Leon, with a demonic grin, muttered, "Oh, so even gods can bleed?" In that instant, Enzo moved. He activated his internal Kael energy. A surge erupted through his body, like reality itself was being overwritten by raw force. Normally, Leon wouldn't even have been able to perceive Enzo's movement. But now, standing at the same awakened threshold, he could track him. Enzo struck first, a lightning-fast right straight designed to break Leon's guard structure, followed instantly by a left hook aimed at the exposed blind zone of his defense. But Leon had extreme combat experience. He dipped slightly. The punch tore through empty air above him, detonating a shockwave so violent it pushed Zayden, who was holding Ayumi's lifeless body, back by nearly 60 centimeters. In that moment, Zayden understood something terrifying. The difference between him and these two wasn't just skill, it was existence itself. He was watching monsters fight like gods. Leon capitalized instantly. An uppercut with his left hand surged upward toward Enzo's jaw. But Enzo reacted even from that impossible angle. blocking it with his palm. Boom! Another shockwave exploded outward. Zayden was pushed back another 20 centimeters, still holding Ayumi. Every instinct in him screamed to intervene, but his mind rejected it immediately. If I move, I'll only get in Leon's way. And that thought destroyed him. As Enzo and Leon exchange blows at speeds beyond human perception, like forbidden combat footage erased from all archives, Zayden's mind collapsed inward, and his internal war became even more violent than the battlefield in front of him. Everything I touch burns. Everyone who tries to help me dies. Lucien had tried to help him during the robot incident and ended up with a fractured skull. The people in the bar were probably now being investigated or manipulated into framing him. Leon was fighting one of the strongest soldiers of the Source, and Zayden couldn't even step in. Elira was probably thinking about him right now, worrying about a man who couldn't even take his zenith pill and stay compliant. And Ayumi was dead in his arms because she chose to help someone like him, because everything he touched collapsed. Meanwhile, the battle shifted. Enzo's control over Kael energy was superior. Refined, stable, absolute. Leon, having only recently awakened level 6, was already losing stability over that overwhelming output. Blood ran from his split lip and forehead. He turned his head slightly towards Zayden and shouted, "Zayden, run! Take her and go. Bury Ayumi outside the city, by a tree. She always said she wanted to be far away from this rotten center of the world." Zayden snapped, "No, I can't do that. I can't leave you here. This is all because of me. Ayumi, Lucian, I should turn myself in and die. It would be better for everyone." Leon's expression twisted, his eyes sharpened with raw rage. "Don't you dare insult our sacrifice, Zayden. Every single one of us chose this without you asking. Don't disrespect Ayumi's choice or mine." Then his voice dropped, cold, final. "I've already accepted my outcome. Now move." Zayden didn't respond. He grabbed Ayumi's body and jumped straight through the window. Enzo reacted instantly. He attempted to intercept Zayden's escape, but boom. Leon's fist was already there, forcing Enzo to raise his guard at the exact moment Zayden disappeared into the distance. The clash reignited violently. Leon, breathing heavily, glanced towards Zayden, escaping with Ayumi's body. His expression was unreadable. Then he muttered, almost to himself, "So, our paths separate again." Zayden escaped in Leon's vehicle, driving toward the outskirts of the city. Leon's words echoed in his mind. Old vehicles are ignored by Source surveillance systems. He stopped the car deep outside the city boundary, on the back seat. Ayumi lay motionless. She represented in his mind the future of everyone who had ever tried to save him. From the trunk, he took a shovel, and he buried her exactly as Leon had said, beneath a tree, far from the city's corrupted core. When it was done, he lit a cigarette. He was not a smoker, but he would become one now. The morning light began to rise. A single beam pierced through the branches, illuminating the grave like a divine path carved through reality itself. Zayden stared upward and whispered, "You're free now, Ayumi. I'm sorry I never truly met you." He got into the car and drove away. No destination, only escape. He couldn't return to the city. Too many eyes, too many dangers. Now he had two problems. He could never go back. Anyone connected to him would be targeted. The second problem was heavier. Hatred. Not anger, not grief, but absolute hatred toward the system. In the center of the city, at the very top of the Source Tower, a woman sat on a throne of glass that functioned simultaneously as a quantum computation core. Her name was Syra Ivanthi. Green eyes, emerald hair, a presence so perfectly structured it felt artificially designed by reality itself. Her beauty was not human, it was engineered perfection. Her dress, green and white, shimmered like oceans, and constellations merged into fabric. In front of her, kneeling with his head lowered, was Enzo. Syra spoke calmly. "Enzo Corvin, one of my strongest assets. Are you aware of the severity of this failure?" "Yes, I was inadequate." Her voice lowered, soft but absolute, like a law of existence. "Do you understand what absolute control means and why it is necessary? Because the source calculates all probabilities and selects the optimal outcome." "Partially correct." She rose slightly, the air compressed. Reality itself felt quieter. Control is required because chaos manifests in infinite forms: actions, emotions, thoughts, reactions, physical and psychological pleasure, desires, ambitions. Nothing must be left to chance. Because the moment control is lost, civilization collapses back into impurity. Enzo bowed deeper. "Understood. I will correct this deviation." Syra's gaze sharpened. Subject Zayden has not taken his zenith dose for an extended period. A pause. Then, perhaps Ilaris Zenith should accompany you. Ilaris Zenith, one of the most influential figures in Tsukahara. Her family created the anti-emotion pill, a substance designed to suppress emotional instability while inducing controlled synthetic pleasure, a tool of peace or a weapon of absolute control. Every story is 100% original. If you like them and want me to continue, press the button, like, and subscribe. Back to the story. Zayden was in the car when, by accident, he opened the glove compartment. Inside, he saw a CD. Zayden stared at the ancient object and said, "I think it's a CD. I've never seen something like this before." In 2076, they still listen to music, but I guess everyone can already figure out what kind of music a society like this would listen to. No insulting expressions, no scandalous words, no thoughts that break the pattern, no calls for freedom or rebellion, and most importantly, no hints of love. The entire cultural output felt like it had been filtered through an emotional suppression grid, clean, controlled, sterilized. Zayden barely managed to figure out where to insert the CD. A true relic-class artifact from the 80s, something that shouldn't even exist outside sealed museum vaults. Zayden was deeply surprised from the very beginning of the song. It wasn't the perfect, sober, calm rhythm of the music he was used to. It felt unstable, raw, almost like it was alive compared to the sterile soundscapes of his era. What followed shocked him, even more when he heard a human voice. He was amazed to discover that people used to sing vocally, not just with instruments, a full biological resonance, uncompressed by algorithmic emotion control. While listening to this song, Zayden lit another cigarette while driving toward nowhere. The world was his home, and at that moment, inside that car, cutting through the silent wasteland of civilization, listening to music that was almost 100 years old for him, Zayden felt, for the first time, that he was truly alive. A tear rolled down his cheek, and he said, "There is so much emotion in this song, I can't believe it. This is music. This is what Source took from us." Indeed, humanity had lost an immense amount when it chose quantum efficiency over emotion. A super-intelligent system designed to optimize survival had rewritten human experience itself, declaring emotion a variable error to be minimized. A central intelligence deciding that emotional fluctuation must be flattened so that violence could no longer exist in society. In exchange for safety, humans always had to give up freedom in one form or another. Suddenly, Zayden slammed the brakes. Hard enough that the car's internal stabilizers screamed under the force. He stepped out of the car and said, "What the hell?" In front of him was a cliff. A gigantic cliff, like reality itself, had been surgically cut. He looked to the left. The abyss stretched endlessly, as if the world had been deleted chunk by chunk. He looked to the right. Same thing. An infinite fracture line in existence. And worst of all, straight ahead, there was only blackness. Nothing. Like staring into the dark void of the universe itself. But wrong. Too close. Too artificial. Zayden felt something twist in his stomach, like a gravitational collapse forming inside him, like his body was rejecting the concept of what he was seeing. Zayden shouted, "What the hell is happening? What is this?" In the city of Tsukahara, Lucian had fully recovered, but he was worried about Zayden. He thought that if he surrendered and did it publicly, Source might avoid harming him. At that moment he thought, he's not a terrorist after all. He only caused financial damage. A dangerously rational thought in a world that punished unpredictability. Right then, on a giant billboard in the city, she appeared. Sira Ivanthi. Her image flickered in with digital authority like the city itself was blinking. Biological residents of Tsukahara City, this is a message from Source. The incident from the bar last night cannot be overlooked. From this moment forward, this individual is classified as a level 4 threat. The words carried a systemic weight, like a classification being etched directly into reality. Lucien collapsed to the ground. He looked up and said, "Oh, Zayden, seems like this time things won't be that easy." Zayden drove like a madman, the vehicle's traction systems constantly correcting his insane trajectory, even refueling the tank using the resources left by Leon. For 18 hours straight, he had been driving at a distance where he could still see the edge of the abyss, stopping only to smoke a cigarette. Like time itself had lost meaning inside that looping horizon. When he left, he hammered a large wooden sign into the ground and marked it. When he saw it again, reality clicked into place with a sickening realization. He had been orbiting the same broken segment of world space. I've been going in circles. This abyss surrounds everything. Finally, furious, he stepped out of the car and kicked a tree with such force that its structure snapped in two like dry code, breaking under overload. He said, "We are surrounded, everything is sealed, and behind these infected dumps there is nothing. Only this city, the people in it, and an infinitely deep abyss, and beyond it, nothing ahead. How is that even possible? What kind of simulation game is Source making us play?" Zayden had many questions, but probably not the right ones. He had to make a decision. But what do you do when the very foundations of reality are tied to this city, like it is a locked node in a system you cannot exit? In the end, Zayden asked himself the question that takes real courage to ask: what if this is all there is? What if all information about the outside world is just lies? What if there is truly nothing beyond this city? And he realized that this meant Leon's efforts, his efforts, everyone's efforts for freedom might have been pointless from the very beginning, like rebellion running inside a closed simulation loop. The thought that all of them had sacrificed everything for nothing made Zayden clench his fist as hard as he could, in a fury he was already starting to get used to. Like rage had become a second nervous system. Suddenly, directly from the abyss standing before him, security automatons began emerging. Each individual unit engineered with enough destructive capability to neutralize a level 2 augmented human in direct combat. From an aerial perspective, the scene resembled a colossal swarm of cybernetic ants crawling upward across the vertical walls of a planetary megastructure. Zayden did not attempt to flee. He entered a combat stance. What meaning did escape even have anymore? Where could he possibly run when the entire world itself functioned like a perfectly sealed containment cage? There was nowhere left to hide, and deep within the collapsing silence of his heart, he no longer even felt the instinct to try. Then the battle began. A catastrophic clash erupted across the wasteland. Robotic heads were launched through the air like fragmented meteors, while hyper-alloy components, materials that would have been classified in the year 2020 as civilization-altering technological breakthroughs, scattered across the battlefield. A single robotic arm, manufactured at that level of nano-engineered precision, would have been valued at over $1 million by early 21st century economic standards. Zayden evaded specialized anti-augmentation ammunition designed specifically to penetrate enhanced musculature and synthetic bone reinforcement. He dodged metallic fists striking from every direction with machine-calculated synchronization, and every punch or kick he delivered generated shockwaves powerful enough to send combat units flying apart across the terrain. Then, the drones emerged. Dozens, then hundreds of them rose from the abyss, like a mechanized plague cloud, enough to force even elite military battalions into tactical retreat. But Zayden was not fighting to advance forward. There was nothing ahead of him worth reaching, and behind him, there was no longer a place he could call home. In the state he had reached, only one objective remained. He wanted to send a message to the source itself, to prove to the quantum artificial intelligence governing civilization that he represented a variable beyond its predictive calculations, and that human defiance possessed no theoretical limit. After 30 uninterrupted minutes of combat, Zayden had destroyed approximately 300 robotic units. The battlefield had transformed into a graveyard of shattered alloy and burning circuitry. Not a single machine remained standing, exhausted, breathing heavily, not because of the robot's power. For a level 5 augmented human like him, combat units calibrated for level 2 threats were insignificant individually. Yet even for someone like Zayden, the overwhelming numerical saturation had become a legitimate tactical burden. Covered in minor wounds and superficial lacerations, he lifted his gaze toward a drone slowly approaching him. The drone activated a holographic projection. A feminine figure appeared, an extraordinarily beautiful woman with silver-white hair, armor so technologically advanced it appeared decades beyond even that era's military science. Mesmerizing pink eyes glowing softly beneath the holographic distortion, and a calm, smiling expression. Her voice carried unnatural serenity. Fascinating. So you are Zayden Morales? Zayden stared at her coldly. And who are you? Another person who wants me dead. She looked slightly surprised, an expression disturbingly human for someone born in an era that had invented emotional suppression pharmaceuticals capable of chemically regulating instinctive reactions. My name is Ilaris Zenith, she replied calmly. And you, in less than 3 days, you have inflicted more damage upon the source than the total accumulated resistance movements of the last decade combined. Zayden Morales looked toward the sky and lit a cigarette. He inhaled deeply, as though the previous 48 hours had psychologically aged him by 10 years of constant pursuit and survival. Then he looked back at her. I don't need your theories. Ilaris Zenith was a woman born among the core families, genetically perfected, politically untouchable, masterfully trained in diplomatic manipulation, even in an era where primitive sexual influence no longer functioned due to emotional suppression technologies. One would assume that in such an advanced civilization, devoid of biological impulses and hormonal dependency, feminine beauty would have become irrelevant, but not in her case, nor in the case of the ruling bloodlines in general. Realizing the conversation was stagnating, she finally asked directly, "What do you want, Zayden? Why did you stop taking your zenith suppression pills? And what is the true reason behind this rebellion? If you believe an injustice was done to you, tell me, and I will see what I can do to help. Things can still return to normal." Zayden stared at her. For approximately 10 seconds, absolute silence dominated the ruined battlefield. Then he answered, "Answers. That's what I want. Why are we surrounded by nothingness? And how does nobody know about it?" Ilaris immediately sensed the shift in control. Now she understood what Zayden truly desired. "If answers are what you seek," she said softly, "then I can provide them. But return to the city. I will personally speak with the leadership and directly with the source on your behalf." Zayden narrowed his eyes. "Why would you help me?" A wide smile appeared on her face. "Because I believe you are a fascinating specimen." She paused briefly before continuing. "You have 24 hours to decide. I will wait for you inside the source tower. And if answers are what you desire, I will give them to you." The transmission terminated instantly. Zayden watched silently as the drone descended back into the abyss, disappearing beneath the darkness like a machine returning to the core of a dead planet. Meanwhile, inside another isolated underground bar, a location Lucian had once revealed was where Zayden used to go whenever he wished to disappear from the world, Alirakova sat alone at a table, her eyes locked permanently on the entrance door. Elegantly dressed, provocatively refined, perfectly prepared down to the smallest visual detail, she held onto the impossible hope that perhaps Zayden would walk through that door. Every time it opened, her body reacted instantly. Every single time, disappointment followed. Inside her mind, a decision had already been made, day after day. For however much biological lifespan she had remaining, she would return to that place and wait for him. The few individuals inside the bar whispered among themselves, "Who is that woman? She looks completely out of everyone's league." A man around 35 years old from a nearby table looked toward them. "You really don't know?" "What are we supposed to know?" they asked almost simultaneously. The man leaned back slowly. "That woman is Alirakova, one of the level 5 augmented humans, and right now she's waiting for Zayden, the man officially designated by the Source as the highest level existential threat." The entire table froze. One of them finally asked, "Do you think she wants to join him? I heard Leon is already with him. Are so many Apex Evolution individuals truly uniting against peace itself?" The man exhaled heavily before answering, "I think her reason is something else entirely." Zayden and Elira kissed. They experienced the legendary sensation none of us have ever known. The entire bar turned toward him. Elira heard every word of the conversation, but chose to ignore it completely. She couldn't afford even a single second of distraction from the door. Then someone entered the bar, but it wasn't the person she was waiting for. Covered in injuries, his head and arms wrapped in medical bandages, the man slammed his fist against the counter. Not at full strength, otherwise the entire structure would have fragmented under the kinetic impact, but hard enough to command absolute attention. "One glass of Irish whiskey. Now." Elira stared at him with widened eyes. The words barely escaped her lips. Leo, Leon Stryker? Leon looked at her with an almost demonic grin stretching across his face. In person, Mamacita. Far away from the city, Zayden sat on the hood of his vehicle, smoking another cigarette beneath the night sky. Darkness had already consumed the horizon, and as he thought about it, he realized waiting 24 hours before making a decision was meaningless. He needed answers now, and the road back to Sukahara City would still require approximately 3 hours of uninterrupted high-speed travel. Without hesitation, Zayden entered the vehicle and accelerated back toward the megacity of Tsukahara. Leon sat down in the empty seat at Elira Kova's table, uninvited, placing his whiskey glass in front of him as if he already owned the space itself. "We need to talk," he said. Elira immediately asked without hesitation where Zayden was and why he wasn't with him. Leon took a slow sip of whiskey before answering. "I don't know, but he's alive." Elira exhaled with visible relief. "I'm glad. Will you bring him back into my arms?" Leon smirked, finishing the drink in one go. "You can be sure of it, Mamacita." He stood up immediately after, raising his voice loud enough for the entire bar to hear. "She's paying." Then he turned slightly toward Elira, who was now looking at him with a complex expression. Concern, disgust, and reluctant respect, all filtered through her usual composed calm. "Consider it an advance payment," Leon added, "for helping your boyfriend." And with that, he opened the door and disappeared into the night. Zayden finally arrived in the city. Without hesitation, he headed directly toward the Source Tower. He parked right in front of it, and the moment he stepped out of the vehicle, he entered the full surveillance radius of the AI security network. Instantly, every camera, every sensor, every robotic unit locked onto him. Within seconds, he was surrounded. This time, the machines were different. Advanced combat class guardians, elite tier units, each one individually capable of defeating a level 4 augmented human in direct confrontation. A single unit would not have been an issue for Zayden, but there were over 30 of them. Even a level 5 augmented human would normally struggle against such overwhelming coordination and redundancy. But Zayden wasn't there to fight. He was there for answers. And then with calm, almost unnatural precision, Ilaris Zenith approached. Her footsteps felt like they bent the perception of time itself. "All units," she said calmly, but with absolute authority, "stand down." Immediately, the robots lowered their weapons. She walked directly up to Zayden, studying him like an anomaly that had exceeded every predictive model ever constructed. "Fascinating," she said softly. "You're even more attractive up close." Zayden knew she represented everything he despised, and yet for a fraction of a second, her words disrupted his mental stability, barely noticeable, but not invisible. Ilaris noticed it instantly, not because it was obvious, but because she was built to notice things that weren't supposed to be noticed. Curious, she stepped closer. Her face moved near his neck, her breath almost touching his skin. One hand rested lightly on his chest. That was enough. Zayden's body reacted. Instincts, raw, suppressed, and violently resurfacing, surged through him like a system override. He pushed her away immediately. "What the hell are you doing?" he shouted. Ilaris began laughing. "Fascinating. Fascinating. So it's true." Zayden's face tightened, anger mixing with confusion. "What is true? What kind of sick experiment is this?" Ilaris remained calm. "Our family spent years perfecting the Zenith pill," she said. "It induces synthetic well-being, suppresses sexual impulses, and creates dependency by attacking ambition itself, erasing even the desire to stop taking it." She tilted her head slightly. "In males, the effect is even more extreme. Their baseline biological drive is higher, making withdrawal significantly more unstable. No one has ever successfully resisted beyond 2 days. Her smile sharpened slightly. Even your friend Leon had to undergo illegal blood-based transfer protocols to break free from the system. But you've gone over 2 weeks without it, and still maintain control. She looked at him like a solved paradox that refused to stay solved. Absolutely fascinating. Zayden was already losing patience. I came here for answers, not to be dissected like a lab specimen. Elaris nodded. Of course, follow me. Inside the Source Tower, Zayden moved through corridors that defied conventional scientific understanding. Mathematical constructs ran in real time across floating, holographic fields, calculations that should not have been solvable within known computational limits. Experimental weapon systems, designed specifically for Level 5 and beyond augmenteds, were being continuously optimized through autonomous quantum feedback loops. Even Zayden felt it. This wasn't just technology, it was something evolving faster than comprehension. Elaris spoke as they walked. As you can see, we are on maximum alert, Zayden, and you are directly connected to this state. Zayden didn't even look at her. Doesn't concern me. If you keep lying and controlling everything like this, more people like me will appear. Elaris stopped. She turned fully toward him. That is where you are wrong, she said. We do not interpret this as a failure of control. We interpret it as a failure to predict you as a variable. Her gaze sharpened. And perhaps an excess of freedom in the system. Zayden clenched his fist. They still don't see it. They think we're just statistical anomalies, when in reality, we're the consequence of their control. When they reached the source chamber, Zayden expected something abstract. A supercomputer, a cosmic AI core, a massive quantum entity of light and logic. Instead, he saw her, a woman, sitting on a throne, the most visually perfect human being he had ever encountered. Elaris lowered her head immediately and knelt. I present my mind and body to the source, she said. Zayden remained standing, frozen. Then she spoke. Her voice was calm, authoritative, melodic, almost soothing, at a neurological level. My name is Syra Evanthi, she said, the biological avatar of the source. Zayden narrowed his eyes. Avatar? Yes, she replied. I am the source. I control every unit that attacked you. I am responsible for what happened to your friend Lucien. I sent Enzo after you and Leon, and Ayumi was executed under my directive. Silence collapsed into the room. Zayden lowered his head. When he spoke again, his voice was no longer controlled. So you're the reason for all of this. It wasn't a question, it was realization. Then, he moved. A single instant, Zayden's fist collided with Syra Evanthi's palm. The impact should have vaporized a tank-class armored vehicle. Instead, it stopped, cleanly. A shockwave exploded outward, ripping through the chamber like atmospheric rupture. Yet Syra didn't move even a single centimeter. Zayden attacked again. A straight right, a left hook, a high kick, all blocked with the same hand, perfectly, effortlessly, like negating variables in an equation already solved. Zayden stepped back, breathing heavily, not from physical exhaustion, but from psychological strain. No one had ever stopped him like this. Ever. Syra smiled. So this is what fascinates you, Elaris? Her gaze shifted slightly. This insect? Elaris looked toward the avatar of the source and said, Still, quite an interesting insect. Syra Evanthi replied with a calm, analytical expression. Indeed, a fascinating persistence. Zayden turned sharply towards Syra Evanthi, fury burning through his voice like a reactor going critical. So that's what we all are to you? Insects, that's how you see our lives? Syra Evanthi looked at him with complete dismissal, as if his words had no measurable value in the equation of reality itself, as if they didn't even qualify as an argument worth processing. She stared directly into his eyes. I have no reason to argue against a fact. Zayden's jaw tightened. Spare me your philosophy. And in the very next fraction of a second, he attacked again. The source blocked every strike effortlessly, her movements minimal, precise, almost inhumanly efficient. But something changed. Zayden was getting faster, and every few strikes, one punch carried a surge of force that released faint blue flickers, like unstable energy leaking from a collapsing star. Syra Evanthi's eyes narrowed slightly. Fascinating. Now I understand why Ilaris is so interested in you. I don't care, Zayden roared. Fight me. Ilaris had already seen it. The fluctuations, the rising output, the instability turning into growth. Her eyes sharpened. Kael, he's beginning to sense Kael energy right now, inside active combat. Incredible. Zayden dropped his stance, like he was going for a low kick. Syra Evanthi raised her leg to block. But at the last instant, Zayden twisted his hips and transformed the motion into a high kick that ripped through the air with a sonic crack, like reality itself, protesting the speed. For the first time, Syra Evanthi's eyes widened. She blocked it easily, but she acknowledged him. That was appropriate for the moment, Zayden. Shut up! I'm not done. Zayden instantly closed the distance. He unleashed a boxing combination that had once dropped even Leon left uppercut, right uppercut to completely seal the guard. Then, a devastating left hook to the body, a strike carrying enough force to make even an armored war elephant collapse instantly under its own weight. Under normal circumstances, it would have ended any opponent. But Syra Evanthi was not normal circumstances. She lowered her guard completely, and with the faintest smile, she slipped through all three attacks with microscopic movements, as if the strikes were passing through a hologram instead of a living being. She looked at him calmly. A good combination, Zayden. If your opponent stands still, and if the speed gap is negligible, as you may have noticed, the difference between us is far too vast. Zayden glared at her like something refusing to accept the laws of existence. I'll fight you until that difference becomes nothing. Syra Evanthi slowly raised one hand, one finger lifted. A green light ignited from it, dense, ancient, and suffocating. Kneel. The command hit reality itself. Zayden slammed into the ground as if the weight of an entire planet had been forcibly assigned to his body. The floor cracked beneath him. His eyes turned blood red. What the hell is this? Syra Evanthi walked forward slowly, calmly, and Zayden from the ground looked at her like one would look at an approaching extinction event, knowing there is no escape vector, yet he pushed. Veins exploded across his neck, muscles screamed under impossible load, saliva dripped as his body fought something that wasn't just physical pressure, but the concept of being crushed itself. He began lifting his torso, centimeter by centimeter, against the force of a reality-bending command. Syra Evanthi stopped. Ilaris, I am using 5% of my power. Ilaris froze. 5%? And he's still moving at level 5 augmentation. Zayden growled through broken breath and raw effort. I won't die. Kneeling, one knee rose, then the other. Ilaris stared in disbelief. Syra Evanthi watched silently, calculations moving behind her calm gaze. Now Zayden was half standing, and blue sparks began erupting from his body like unstable fragments of a dying supernova. This is happening right in front of us. Alaris whispered. You were right, Syra said softly. He is fascinating. Then, Zayden roared, a sound that shook the throne hall like a seismic event inside a sealed dimension. Blue energy exploded outward, and he stood, still under pressure, but resisting. Zayden smirked. So, is that all? Syra Evanthi deactivated her energy and began applauding slowly. Bravo! You are no longer merely an insect. A compliment from the source, but to Zayden, it felt like mockery sharpened into elegance. Alaris stepped forward. Zayden, stop. The fight is over. You were summoned here for restoration, not annihilation. Zayden released his energy. Silence returned. So my citizenship is really restored? Syra replied calmly. Yes. After analysis, the escalation at the bar was caused by an AI agent. Zayden narrowed his eyes. Since when do you care about justice? At that moment, Enzo Corvin entered the throne hall. The moment he opened his mouth, Zayden moved. Too fast, too precise. Time slowed for him. Enzo tried to react, but the kick landed first. A devastating strike that snapped through his ribs and launched him across the hall like a ballistic projectile. He slammed into a reinforced iron wall, engineered to withstand nuclear-level impact. The structure cracked. Enzo's body embedded into it like a broken statue, nailed into metal. Zayden smiled. Pure satisfaction. Enzo opened his eyes weakly. You, the kid who ran that night. Zayden stepped in and punched him. Again. Each impact drove Enzo deeper into the wall, deforming steel like it was soft clay. Then, Syra Evanthi's voice cut through the hall like a command from a collapsing star. Stop. Continue. And my offer of peace is revoked. And I will personally end you. Zayden froze for a moment. His mind burned. I could kill him. Right here. Right now. But Lucien. Elira. Leon. Then. Leon. Where is Leon? Enzo was already unconscious. Alaris spoke quietly. Leon is alive. Injured, but alive. He escaped. For the first time, something shifted in Alaris's gaze. Fear. Not analysis, not curiosity. Fear. Zayden turned away from Enzo and walked towards Syra Evanthi. Defiant. Unbroken, Syra spoke calmly. You are absolved of all prior actions. You are free. Zayden turned and left, but not before signaling Alaris to follow. He still had no answers. Meanwhile, Leon, in a dark and shady room, together with two other men, was plotting an offensive move. With him were Dante and another man named Daniel, curly-haired, with dark skin, and on his neck a tattoo of a cross, a forbidden symbol in 2076. Any form of religion or religious symbolism could condemn you to extremely severe punishments, one of them being mandatory mental reformation. Leon spoke. Dante, Daniel, I would like to make a proposal, but first, he clapped his hands and two extremely beautiful women appeared with a bottle of wine and 3 glasses. Dante took a sip of wine and said, Good. I think this is the first quality thing I've drunk in your dump of a place. Daniel looked at Dante and said, Dante, your tongue should find peace. You are a troubled spirit, thrashing in an ocean of sins. Leon looked at them, put his pen down, and said, Okay, enough you two, that's not why I called you. Dante looked at him and asked, Then why did you call us? Leon smiled like a psychopath, as we had come to expect from him, and said, Because I want to take down the source. Dante looked at him seriously, then burst out laughing. I knew it. I hit you too hard a few days ago. Your brain left your head and went straight up your ass. Daniel also spoke. Leon, the source is indeed heretical, an insult to God. It violates free will and forces submission and worship. Dante said, Perfect. Another suicidal idiot. Have you both lost your minds? Leon, with a gesture to calm down, said, "Calm down, Dante. Since when are you a scared cat? Want a girl to relax you a bit?" Dante replied, "Leon, out of all the stupid things you've done, attacking the source will be the last one. Trust me, even you can't be that stupid." Leon, with a horror movie smile, said, "Wanna bet?" Meanwhile, Zayden, together with Alaris, were watching the city from the balcony of the Source Tower. The silence was oppressive. Zayden, after his fight with the Source's avatar, and after brutally beating Enzo, remained silent. Alaris spoke first. "So, Zayden, now that you're level 6 and have regained your freedom, what are you going to do?" Zayden looked at her and asked, "Freedom? You know very well that's a lie." Alaris immediately replied, "No, it isn't. Maybe you don't trust the Source, but she never lies." Zayden responded, "Really? What about what we learned as kids, about augmentation levels 1 to 5? What about everything we were taught about Earth, planets, life in general? Sorry, but I don't believe a word of it. I'm even expecting someone to attack me from behind right now." Alaris, slightly irritated, said, "Zayden, if the Source wanted you dead, you would already be dead." Zayden no longer believed anything. Probably she's just playing, watching the rest of us like insects. Alaris sighed heavily, already tired of the situation. "Look at the good part. You're not being attacked anymore. You could even be with the girl you kissed, although what?" Zayden asked, curious. Alaris looked at him and replied, "Maybe you should know she isn't exactly what she seems, your new girlfriend." At her home, Elira stepped out of the shower, wearing only a towel, looking out the window toward the city. Moonlight was present, but weak compared to the overwhelming artificial illumination of the metropolis. She thought out loud, "Zayden, if you knew the truth, would you still desire me?" Meanwhile, in Leon's base, tension had escalated significantly. Dante was not a coward and neither someone who avoided reckless action, but at that table, he seemed to be the only person whose brain was still functioning properly. Daniel took a deep sip of wine and said, "Leon, your faith moves me to tears. You are an honorable warrior, a true soldier of faith." Leon replied, "Exactly. I have faith that the Source has already begun exceeding its limits, so it must be eliminated." Dante wanted to speak, but at that exact moment, the door burst open. Enzo entered. With him, 20 military AI robots at the highest level, capable of defeating a level 4 augmented human. Enzo said coldly and precisely, "Leon, Dante, Daniel, and everyone present, you are under arrest for level 4 terrorism and direct conspiracy against the Source." Dante sighed. "Perfect. I knew there was no such thing as free good wine from you." Leon smiled like a psychopath. "Oh, what a surprise, Enzo. This time, you didn't come alone. Were you scared? Also, you look a bit beaten up. Did the Source punish you for failure, or did someone else take care of you before I could?" Enzo clenched his teeth, an expression of raw fury, something no one had ever seen on his face before. The silent, efficient assassin, the ultimate weapon of the Source, now looked human, humiliated, enraged. Leon laughed. "So it's true, I'm glad." Enzo roared and attacked, abandoning protocol entirely. He activated Kael energy, a high-density anomalous combat field, a dark, energetic, aura-like emission that enveloped his body and destabilized the surrounding air. He struck Leon with a punch that shook the entire bunker. Leon smiled through his guard and kicked Enzo with a mid-kick, fracturing 2 ribs instantly and sending him into a wall at bullet-like velocity. Enzo crashed, forming a crater. Dante was shocked. "So it's true. That bastard Leon is on Enzo's level now, maybe even stronger. Enzo emerged from the rubble and struck Daniel in the jaw, sending him into the wall. Then he shouted, "AI units, lethal force authorized, engage." The AI soldiers attacked. Chaos erupted. A woman was tranked and collapsed instantly. A level 3 man tried to resist, but was overwhelmed in seconds. A level 4 fighter was killed instantly by a single strike. Leon destroyed every AI unit he touched in under 2 seconds. Dante took down 2. Daniel was still unconscious. More than half of Leon's people were either down, dead, or extracted by drones for source judgment. Leon turned to Dante. "Help Daniel, both of you run." Dante replied, "I don't abandon comrades." Leon said urgently, "I'll manage. You and Daniel are the highest priority. You haven't agreed to anything yet." Dante grabbed Daniel and fled at extreme speed. Leon exhaled and fully activated his Kael aura, a violent red emission, like a high-energy combustion field radiating from his body, stronger than during his previous battle with Enzo. Enzo's eyes widened. "In just a few days, you've become stronger than me," Enzo said, filled with hatred. Leon smiled. "Of course. You're just a mindless puppet following orders. Let me ask you something before I turn your robots into scrap metal. Do you believe in anything? Do you have a reason for obeying these orders?" "The source is supreme," Enzo shouted. "I figured," Leon replied, disappointed. In a single instant, Leon moved at supersonic velocity. Enzo could no longer track him visually, his perception lagging behind neural processing limits. When Enzo turned, the horror was clear. All AI combat units were already dismantled. Leon stood behind him. Enzo activated maximum aura output. Lights flickered. Walls trembled. Pressure waves distorted the structure. "Dare to stand in the way of the source!" Enzo screamed. In the next moment, he was already airborne. Leon had kicked him through the bunker roof, launching him into the street where he traveled another 45 meters, crashing through 6 cars and tearing through asphalt before losing consciousness. Leon approached slowly, but then he saw reinforcements, hundreds of AI units and drones approaching. He thought, "If I continue, I'll turn half the city into a war zone. Innocent people will be harmed." He clenched his teeth and vanished into the night. Elira watched everything through a holographic feed. A calm smile appeared on her perfect features. Maybe things are starting to get complicated. Zayden and Ilaris were now in a white interrogation-like room, sitting at a table. Ilaris smiled, almost seductively, biting her lip. Zayden felt something strange again. The same need he had felt with Elira, but stronger this time. Ilaris smiled. "So, Zayden, do you want something? I told you I would try to satisfy any need if you came here." Zayden replied seriously, voice slightly trembling. "Ilaris Zenith, tell me why we are surrounded by a cliff. And more importantly, why beyond that cliff there is nothing." Ilaris asked calmly, "Zayden, do you know how big this city is and how many people live in it?" "About 7 million people and 2,000 square kilometers," Zayden replied. "Very good," she said. "And did you calculate how far you traveled in a straight line by car?" Zayden replied, irritated. "About 700-800 kilometers straight line, and then I circled the cliff edge in 18 hours at around 280 kilometers per hour." "Very good, Zayden," she said, playing with her hair. Zayden slammed the titanium-reinforced atomic lattice table with his palm. Carefully enough not to destroy it completely, but enough to deform it under localized force stress. "You're mocking me. I don't care about your math test." Ilaris replied, "No. The truth is, we don't fully possess this information. but I can tell you the basics. Anything, Zayden snapped. The truth is, what you saw is what we also know. There is nothing beyond this surface. But information about Earth, a round world, the outside world, history, everything you learned, even if censored or incomplete, is real. Zayden hit the table again, enraged. Impossible. Lies. It makes no sense. How can both realities exist at once? Ilaris replied calmly. I know. Our scientists are working on it. But it is all real. The source likely knows more. But it said, we are not ready for some answers. It is actively reconstructing reality. Every day it expands usable surface area by 1 kilometers in all directions, while 10 meters collapse daily, leaving 990 meters stable and usable. Zayden felt like he was about to explode with rage. So, it builds our reality, and if tomorrow the source is destroyed? Ilaris' expression shifted instantly from flirtation to extreme seriousness. Then every day, 10 meters would shrink, and about twice a year, there are abnormal days where over 3 kilometers collapse. Do you know how long until the city is consumed? Zayden looked at her in horror. About 80.3 years. Exactly, she said sadly. In roughly 80 years, if the source disappears, everything falls into chaos and everyone dies. Level 1 augmented individuals easily live over 100 years, and someone like you could have over 300 years ahead. Your friend Lucien might still have 120 years left. Zayden asked, so if I destroy the source, I condemn everyone to death? Precisely, she answered. You wanted answers. I gave you everything we know. The source must keep the city stable and the world calm. Do you realize what would happen if people found out? Do you understand the chaos? Zayden clenched his teeth. Yes, I understand. Did Elira know? Ilaris lowered her head. Yes. Zayden stared at Ilaris for nearly 10 seconds. The tension in the room had already gained a physical density, as if it could be touched. Finally, Zayden spoke. Ilaris, let me contact Elira. Right now. Ilaris looked at him carefully. Zayden, you're emotionally unstable at the moment. I would recommend… Ilaris, please. Zayden interrupted. Something in his tone had changed. The violent, furious man from earlier had vanished the moment she confirmed that Elira already knew the truth about their world. Ilaris sighed softly. Fine, but please stay calm and figure things out, without mentioning that you learned anything from me. I don't want anyone believing I manipulated you. Zayden looked at her, slightly surprised by how human, almost friendly, she sounded. Fair enough. I'm not planning to fight with her anyway. I still don't trust you. That seems reasonable, Ilaris replied calmly. Zayden initiated a holographic call. Elira answered almost immediately. She was wearing only a towel, droplets of water still sliding slowly across her skin. She looked into the projection and smiled with visible relief. Zayden, I'm so happy you're alive. I'm happy to see you too, Elira, he answered, but I'd rather see you face to face. Elira's expression softened instantly. Of course, any time. Can you come over now? Where are you? Where are you calling from? And at that exact moment, as if personally sent by the gods of chaos themselves, Ilaris suddenly appeared behind Zayden and waved at Elira with a bright smile. Elira exploded. Ilaris, you bitch, what the hell are you doing next to my boyfriend? Ilaris placed a hand dramatically on her chest. Oh my. Is Elira Kova jealous? That's such a rare and precious sight. Do you think Zayden is some kind of object? He has every right to choose the better woman. Or both of us, if he wants. Right, Zayden? Elira looked seconds away from tearing through the hologram itself and strangling Alaris with her bare hands. But Alaris still wasn't done. She stepped closer to Zayden and began massaging his shoulders slowly. "Oh, Zayden, you're so tense," she whispered in a smooth, dangerously seductive voice. Elira completely lost control. Zayden, already becoming familiar with Alaris's manipulative games, immediately intervened. "Enough. Alaris, please leave the room." "Okay, darling," Alaris replied playfully. "Go sort things out with her." "I'm not your darling. Now please leave." For the first time, Zayden saw Elira consumed by pure fury. Even Alaris seemed surprised by the intensity of it. Still, this revealed two important things to Zayden. First, Elira had not taken her zenith pill. Second, she genuinely wanted him for herself. Once Alaris finally left, Elira immediately spoke. "I saw how you let her touch you, Zayden. Did that witch do something to you? Did she take advantage of your male needs while you're vulnerable? Because if she did, I swear I'll—" "Enough," Zayden said firmly. "Listen carefully, Elira. I just want to see you and discuss something important. Alaris has nothing to do with this, and to make things absolutely clear, even if you saw her there, she is still my enemy." Elira looked at him skeptically. "Fine, I'm sending you the address now. Though I admit, I'm curious why a level 5 augmented woman like me suddenly has competition this close to you." The call ended. Afterward, Zayden called Alaris back into the room. "Alaris, did you actually gain anything from that?" Alaris looked at him for a moment before answering quietly, "No, I lost." Then a faint smile appeared on her lips. "But you gained something. It seems she really does care about you." Meanwhile, Leon was hiding beneath a massive transport bridge, smoking a cigarette. He contacted Dante through an ancient radio transmitter, technology so primitive that the source's surveillance systems barely even registered it. "Dante. Is Daniel okay?" Daniel answered instead. "Brother Leon, I am well. The Lord allowed my recovery to proceed swiftly. Are you safe?" Leon exhaled smoke slowly. "The fuck I am. I've got at least 200 robots searching the entire city for me." Daniel's voice immediately turned judgmental. "Brother Leon, your tongue spreads venom once again." Yeah, you're right," Leon replied. "Now give me Dante." Dante grabbed the transmitter. "Ha ha ha. I thought you two were finally bonding." "Daniel's too good for me," Leon answered. "Tell me something useful. Any news about Zayden?" Dante's tone suddenly shifted into something almost concerning. "Yeah, but you're not going to believe where he is right now." Leon narrowed his eyes. "Where?" At that exact moment, Zayden was inside a next-generation military helicopter. Beside him sat Alaris. He still didn't understand why she had insisted on accompanying him personally to see Elira. He was slowly beginning to familiarize himself with the terrifying complexity of female psychology. He still lacked experience, but compared to the average citizen, he was already far more familiar with women than most men alive. Elira stepped onto the terrace of her apartment building just as the aircraft stabilized above the platform. Inside the helicopter, Alaris watched her with an amused smile. Elira was furious, but she refused to let Alaris think she was winning. "Oh wow, Alaris," she said sweetly. "How thoughtful of you to bring my boyfriend home." That irritated Alaris slightly. She would have preferred screaming, threats, emotional chaos, like during the holographic call. Still, she recovered instantly. With a smile bordering on malicious, she replied, "Before bringing him over, I made sure he received the kind of treatment a man fully requires." For a brief moment, Elira genuinely felt the urge to leap upward and rip the helicopter out of the air. The terrifying part was that, With her level of augmentation and localized force amplification, she probably could, but somehow she restrained herself. "I suppose," Elira answered calmly, "that sometimes men feel the need to sample inferior products, just to remind themselves how good what they have at home truly is." That one hit Elira's hard. She had not expected a counterattack like that. Elira immediately noticed the weakness and smiled. "Tonight, I'll be sleeping beside him. Meanwhile, you'll probably be hugging a stuffed bear exactly like when you were 6 years old. You still haven't become a real woman." Elira instantly turned red with rage. For a second, the atmospheric pressure inside the helicopter cabin visibly fluctuated due to involuntary neuro-emotional energy spikes from her augmentation system, but with immense effort, she calmed herself and signaled the pilot. "We're leaving. Right now." The helicopter accelerated away. Zayden had watched the entire exchange in total confusion. His mind was capable of processing tactical calculations at extreme speed, but what he had just witnessed completely bypassed his understanding. "What the hell did I just watch?" he asked. "That didn't look peaceful, but it also didn't look like an actual fight." Elira shrugged. "That's more or less how women rival each other when we stop taking zenith. Ignore it." Zayden scratched the side of his head awkwardly. "Right. Anyway, we seriously need to talk. I'll wait outside while you change." "I can talk like this," Elira replied immediately. "Come in." Meanwhile, Lucian stood alone in front of his mirror at home. He stared at his reflection and whispered, "Am I just some cute little cupcake? I can't do anything for Zayden. I can't help Leon. Why am I like this?" He was going through a genuine existential crisis, one of the darkest moments of his life, though many would probably say it was necessary. Then suddenly, Lucian grabbed every zenith pill he owned and threw them into the trash. "How long?" he whispered. "How long can I survive without this garbage?" Inside Elira's apartment, Zayden sat across from her in silence. Elira was sitting with one leg crossed over the other, directly in front of him. Zayden kept his head lowered most of the time, overwhelmed by thoughts, slightly agitated by the dangerously distracting view before him, yet still determined to confront her. Elira finally lost patience and opened the conversation herself. "Seriously, Zayden, are you planning to stare at me like that all night? Aren't you going to hold me, kiss me? You're starting to make me think Elira took care of you a little too well for you to still want me." Zayden's expression immediately turned serious. "Elira, I'm going to be direct with you." He looked straight into her eyes. "Why did you want to see me? Why would a woman like you, a level 5 augmented who doesn't even take zenith, want to meet someone like me in that bar that night?" Elira slowly raised an eyebrow. "So Elaris already got between us and turned you against me. I waited for you in your favorite bar every single day after you disappeared." "That has nothing to do with my question," Zayden replied coldly. Then he insisted, "Please answer me. It's important." Elira exhaled, almost exhausted by the direction of the conversation. "I heard a lot about you from Lucian. I liked the way he described you, so I wanted to meet you. What's so strange about that?" "It is strange," Zayden answered immediately. "Why would you even talk to Lucian in the first place? How does a level 5 woman end up becoming friends with him?" She defended herself at once. "Lucian is a good friend and an interesting person. Honestly, I thought you of all people would understand that best, Zayden." "Then let me ask you something more important," Zayden said. The tension inside the apartment had already become suffocating. "Did you know our world is flat? That if you leave the city in a straight line, after roughly 700 or 800 kilometers, you eventually reach an endless cliff?" Did you know there's literally nothing beyond it? Elira's eyes widened for a fraction of a second. Then she calmly answered, "Yes, I knew." Zayden stood up and walked toward the massive window, overlooking the endless artificial lights of the city. Without turning around, he asked quietly, "Why didn't you tell me?" Elira immediately replied, "When, Zayden? When exactly was I supposed to tell you? During those few chaotic minutes in the bar, after you disappeared with Leon and I had no idea where you even were." "Does Lucian know any of this?" Zayden asked. "No," Elira answered honestly. "I never told him. Lucian follows the rules. And honestly, I think that's what's best for him." Zayden slowly turned back toward her. The source constantly creates new land, roughly 1 kilometer every day in all directions, while 10 meters collapse daily. And twice a year, there are abnormal collapses where at least 3 kilometers disappear. Is that true too? For the first time since he arrived, Elira Kova looked genuinely shocked by the amount of information he possessed. Still, she answered immediately. "Yes, it's true. I come from an important family with access to classified information like that. But believe me, Zayden, I would have told you eventually if I'd had the chance." Zayden walked closer to her. "Would you really?" His voice had become quieter now, but somehow even more dangerous. "You're part of the Kova family, one of the founding bloodlines. Elaris told me. Would you really betray them just so you could feel alive beside me?" "Yes," Elira snapped instantly. Then she looked at him, almost desperately. "Yes, I would have done it for you. And you're seriously choosing to believe her over me?" Zayden answered calmly, though this time there was visible regret in his voice. "I believe what I see. And right now, it looks like you manipulated me for entertainment." He paused, then continued slowly. "You wanted to meet me. You provoked me in the bar. And in the end, you kissed me yourself." He looked directly into her eyes. "A perfect romantic experience, right, Elira?" Elira looked like she had just been stabbed. There was no anger left in her expression anymore. No hatred, only sadness. A sadness so deep, it looked seconds away from breaking into tears. "Zayden, stop!" Her voice trembled. "Why are you saying these things? You're not just some experience for my amusement." Zayden stared at her silently for a moment. Then he spoke. "Okay, Elira, but now that I've seen you're safe, I'm leaving." Her eyes widened. "Where are you going?" This time the tears could no longer be stopped. Zayden answered quietly, "Somewhere I can put my thoughts in order." And then he jumped off the balcony, 20th floor. Elira instantly ran toward the edge in panic. Even for a level 5 augmented human, a fall from that height could result in catastrophic trauma or even death, depending on impact dynamics and bioenhancement synchronization failure. But then she saw him below, with her enhanced vision, completely unharmed. Even more terrifying, there was no impact crater. Nothing. At the final moment of descent, Zayden had redirected Kael energy through the soles of his feet and released a compressed counterforce burst into the air beneath him, reducing the effective kinetic impact to nearly zero through localized atmospheric displacement. Elira froze in shock. Then she whispered softly, "Level 6. Zayden has evolved this much already." Now Zayden walked through the city like a free man. He was stronger, more informed, more dangerous. At this point, he had become a living threat, both to the source and to everyone around him. Part of him wanted to find Leon and tell him everything. But then another thought appeared. If I tell Leon, I'll only hand him ammunition for his revolution. Zayden clenched his jaw. He'll turn the entire city into chaos. And knowing him, he'll condemn all of us to death if that's what it takes for him to win. From an alley, right on the street Zayden was walking through, as if invoked by supernatural forces controlled by fate, or perhaps as a joke made by God himself, a voice echoed out, "Yo, Zayden, you should give me my car back." Zayden turned around, surprised, and looked at him. "Leon, I see you're in good shape. What about we talk somewhere more private?" Leon said directly. "And by the way, I'm serious about the car." The two of them walked off together, and Zayden told Leon everything that had happened, except for the cliff. Leon suddenly started laughing like a madman. "So you actually gave Enzo a proper beating? Good. I hit that bastard pretty hard too, but I didn't have time to finish him." Zayden could immediately sense that Leon had also evolved significantly in terms of power. It was clear he was now stronger than Enzo, meaning there were already two individuals capable of surpassing the Source's main soldier. In the Source Tower, Enzo woke up from his coma. He jumped to his feet and screamed like a wounded animal. "Leon, where are you, you worthless piece of trash? I will destroy you. I am Enzo Corvin." At that moment, Sira Evanthi entered the room. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Enzo dropped to his knees. "I submit my mind and body to the Source." Sira Evanthi looked at him with a mixture of pity and disgust. "Did I hear that correctly? You had an emotional reaction earlier, Enzo." Enzo answered with a trembling voice. "I deeply regret my actions and promise it will never happen again. I will..." He didn't finish. Sira Evanthi kicked him. A controlled strike at roughly 3% output, enough to send him into the wall like a projectile, but precisely controlled to avoid critical injury. Enzo's eyes widened in shock. He couldn't believe it. The Source itself had struck him. "I take full responsibility for my actions," Enzo shouted desperately. "Do you wish to end my useless existence? I do not deserve the touch of the Source." Sira Evanthi looked at him coldly. "Disgusting. You've become repulsive lately, Enzo. First Zayden, and now Leon. One of them will replace you." Hearing this, Enzo raised his voice, trembling with fear and desperation. "No, that's impossible. I will become stronger. Things will not stay like this." Sira Evanthi looked at him again. "You're pathetic." Then she left the room, leaving Enzo drowning in rage, shame, and fear, though not fear of death. Enzo could accept dying for the Source. What he could not accept was the idea that the Source itself might prefer one of the terrorists over him. Zayden and Leon arrived at the apartment where Dante and Daniel were hiding. "Who did you bring me to meet this time?" Zayden asked. Leon smiled. "Zayden, you're about to become part of the strangest group you've ever encountered in your life." Leon slammed his boot into the apartment door, blasting it open with enough force to make the entire frame shudder like thin scrap metal under a plasma impact. Zayden looked at him and smirked. "Now that's more like you. You actually scared me earlier when you knocked politely on Ayumi's door." Leon's expression darkened instantly. Ayumi deserved special treatment. I'll never forgive Enzo for what he did. Then Dante's voice suddenly echoed through the apartment. "You fucking idiot. Why do you always have to do that every single time you enter a place?" Leon reacted as if the question itself was completely meaningless and immediately redirected the conversation. "Zayden, these are Dante and Daniel. You introduced us like we're friends," Dante said dryly. "We are brothers, brothers of faith," Daniel declared with overflowing excitement. Zayden studied both of them carefully. He could feel it immediately. Both were level 5 augmented humans, and dormant Kael energy rested inside their bodies like sealed cores waiting to awaken. At that moment, a thought crossed Zayden's mind. Leon was gathering far too many dangerous people around him. The group sat down at the table, and Leon immediately got to the point. Here's the situation. My base is destroyed. I lost 70% of my offensive power. 12 level 3 augmented soldiers are dead, and 7 were captured and dragged back to the source. I also lost 4 level 4 soldiers. Nobody interrupted him. The silence in the room became heavy. Then, after Leon finished speaking, Dante leaned back slightly before talking. Leon, after tonight, I think the alliance between our factions should become official. I'm stepping down as leader, and my men are yours. Daniel immediately followed. All the brothers of faith will support Leon. Zayden stayed silent, but he understood something very clearly in that moment. Leon had become truly dangerous now. Leon smiled slowly, like an absolute psychopath moments away from enjoying a massacre. Perfect. Still, I'm shocked you'd actually give up your position as leader, Dante. Dante answered with the exact same savage grin. It's natural. You're stronger than me now, but I'll keep challenging you whenever I get the chance. One day, I'll take the position back. Daniel then turned towards Zayden. What's your motivation? The instant he asked that, the room went completely silent. Both Leon and Dante fixed their eyes on Zayden. Zayden frowned slightly. I don't understand the question. Motivation for what? Daniel answered calmly. Simple. I fight for my faith, because this system violates the ideals chosen by God too much to deserve existing anymore. Dante fights because the system murdered his parents and stripped his family of their noble status. Leon fights because… Daniel gave a small laugh. Well, you know Leon, but you? What's stopping you from leaving right now? Zayden's answer genuinely shocked Leon. The truth is, I don't really have many reasons. Maybe Ayumi. Maybe because Lucian got hurt. But I already beat the living shit out of Enzo for Ayumi, and Lucian's fine now. Sierra Avanthi cleared me of everything. Officially, I'm a free man. I don't need a chip anymore. I can do whatever the hell I want. Leon stared at him carefully before speaking. Zayden, are you saying you're backing out? After everything that happened, you still don't want to continue this fight? Ayumi lost her life because of you. Zayden answered without hesitation. And for that, I humiliated Enzo so badly, his soul probably still twitches when he remembers it. Believe me, I would have finished the job if the source hadn't stopped me. But now, what reason do I have left to fight? I got the revenge I wanted, and Daniel's right. A person needs a real motivation, not just shame stopping them from admitting the truth. Leon stared at Zayden and said, So, let me get this straight. You want to go independent again? After everything that happened, you still haven't realized the source is a complete fucking disaster. Don't you see its dictatorship has nothing to do with safety? It's just control, manufactured paranoia. They hunted you down because you defended Lucian from the robots. They executed Ayumi because she helped me remove the chips. They've been coming after me for absolutely nothing ever since the beginning. And now they destroyed my base and attacked Dante and Daniel just because they came to talk to me. Zayden listened to Leon until he finished, then answered calmly, Yes, you're right that the source isn't perfect. Not perfect, Leon exploded, losing his patience completely. The source isn't perfect. It's a totalitarian pile of shit that doesn't even allow us to be human. No love, no morality, no real friendship, no physical affection, no religion. And yet we treat it like it's some kind of fucking god. He stepped closer, eyes burning. Do you even realize how rotten this entire system is, Zayden? Daniel slowly extended one arm dramatically, with his head lowered, like Baldwin IV of Jerusalem standing before a doomed crusade. Enough, Leon. Your friend Zayden made himself clear. He isn't against us, but he isn't with us either. All we can do is hope our interests align along the way. Leon turned toward Daniel immediately. Shut up, Daniel. You don't understand. Then he looked back at Zayden with deadly seriousness. Zayden, if you walk out that door, you're telling me you're still undecided. Do you understand what that means in the middle of a war? Zayden slowly stood up. I understand perfectly. Then he turned around and walked out of the apartment. The instant the door shut behind him, Leon slammed his palm into the metal table so hard the entire thing crumpled apart, like its molecular structure had given up resisting him. Dante smiled faintly. Looks like your friend has seen too much these last few days. Leon snapped toward him, fury written across his face. What the hell is that supposed to mean? Daniel answered instead. That's the look of a tired soldier, not a coward retreating from battle. I'll pray for him. Leon exhaled slowly. Maybe you're right. I just hope Zayden comes back to his senses soon. Outside, Zayden walked through the streets, watching people drinking in bars, clothing stores filled with unbelievably beautiful women shopping beneath neon lights, parks where old men sat together, playing chess and talking peacefully beneath artificial trees, glowing softly in the evening haze. The world wasn't perfect, but he couldn't condemn everyone in it to certain destruction. At that exact moment, Ilaris appeared in front of him. She was dressed casually, yet somehow looked just as devastatingly beautiful. She wore a red top and a short futuristic skirt that shimmered faintly beneath the city lights. In her hair was a flower-shaped luminous clip, emitting a soft glow like bioluminescent plasma. Zayden looked genuinely surprised to see her, especially dressed like that. Ilaris, what are you doing here? I went out for a walk, she replied casually. But what about you? Why aren't you with Elira? I needed some time to clear my head. Elira suggested they sit down for 10 minutes at a random bar, pretending she also had nothing better to do and simply wanted someone to talk to. The two entered a bar, the exact same bar where Elira always waited for him. The moment people inside recognized Zayden, the atmosphere froze solid, especially after they noticed who was beside him. One man leaned toward his friend and whispered into his ear, "That's Zayden, the terrorist who got cleared of every charge." And beside him, he swallowed hard. Beside him is Ilaris Zenith, one of the most important people in the city. Zayden and Ilaris sat down. As she casually played with her hair and stared at him, Ilaris smiled. Looks like you're famous. Already exhausted from trying to call her out, when he knew perfectly well she was constantly trying to play psychological chess with him, Zayden simply replied, "So are you." The two talked, smiled, and drank together beneath the horrified stares of everyone around them. People who genuinely didn't know what they were supposed to think anymore. To them, it made absolutely no sense. Why were two people who should hate each other to the point of mutual annihilation getting along so well? Then suddenly, the bar door slammed open. Elira entered breathing heavily. Elira did not hesitate for even a moment. She stared directly at Zayden and said, "So this is why you could no longer be with me." Her voice carried a volatile fusion of sorrow and fury. The sight of Ilaris standing there with that unmistakable smile did absolutely nothing to improve the situation. Zayden looked at her for several seconds before replying, "Elira, why are you here?" It was a catastrophic mistake. Asking a woman that question in a situation like this was practically a death sentence. He could have leapt from the 20th floor of a skyscraper, and that still would have been significantly less dangerous and infinitely less foolish than what he had just done. Elira shouted at him, "Zayden, how can you do this to me with her?" Elaris observed the entire exchange with visible amusement. Since she had never been particularly fond of merely watching an argument without making it worse, she performed an absolutely outrageous act. Wrapping her arms around Zayden, she exclaimed, "Oh my, Zayden, your girlfriend doesn't know about us." Zayden placed a hand against his forehead. He gently removed Elaris's arms from around him, but the delicate manner in which he moved her aside only ignited Elira's anger even further. She screamed. "She isn't made of paper, you know. She's level 5 augmented. She won't suffer anything if you push her away. Why are you being so careful with her?" Surprised, Zayden replied, "Why would I hurt her?" A question like that, asked at that exact moment, only intensified Elira's rage. She did not wait. In less than a fraction of a second, Elira crossed 10 meters, her fist accelerating directly toward Elaris's face with explosive force. Yet with astonishing ease, Zayden intercepted the strike. The collision between Elira's fist and Zayden's open palm generated a shockwave powerful enough to ripple through the entire bar. Everyone present felt a sudden burst of wind brush across their skin and surge through their hair. One man swallowed nervously and said, Elira is unbelievably powerful. But Zayden, he's a monster for blocking that strike so effortlessly." Another person added, "Zayden is in an entirely different league. It looks like Elaris is willing to break the rules for him, and Elira isn't going to accept that." Elira looked at Zayden in shock, tears gathering in her eyes. "You're really choosing her." Elaris herself was still stunned. She had not even managed to raise her guard before the attack. If Zayden hadn't blocked that, she thought, I think she would have launched me through the concrete wall and straight into the street. Taking advantage of the moment, Elaris said, "Elira, you're so hostile. I can't believe you wanted to hit my face. Did it never occur to you that Zayden might not have kissed me with the same passion afterward?" Elira froze. "So you kissed her, Zayden? Is there actually something between you two?" By now, the entire bar had erupted into discussion. Zayden kissed Elira, and now he kissed Elaris too. Is Zayden going to have physical relationships with both of them? He's like an animal. You can tell he's a terrorist. Another individual commented, "These physical interactions probably feel different from neural interaction. Why is he so desperate for those sensations?" A woman elsewhere in the bar disagreed. "Elaris looks more like she's mocking Elira. I don't think it's fair to accuse him." The opinions regarding Zayden had already begun splitting into opposing camps. Remaining calm, Zayden addressed Elira. "Elira, nothing happened between me and Elaris, but do you realize what you're doing right now?" Elira was far too angry to listen. Any trace of trust she once possessed was visibly gone. Using the grip Zayden still had on her arm, she drove her right foot into the floor for leverage and launched her left leg directly toward Elaris's head. Zayden released her fist. With only 2 fingers, he gently redirected Elira's kick. The result was immediate. She lost her balance midair and crashed onto a nearby table. Rising instantly, she roared, "You protected her again." Elaris simply could not let the opportunity pass. She wrapped her arms around Zayden once more. "Zayden, I'm scared." Elira screamed at the top of her lungs, "Zayden, why are you doing this to me?" Finally, Zayden lost his patience. "Elira, how long do you plan to continue this circus and humiliate yourself?" She answered immediately, "You're humiliating me. with this trash of a woman that you'd rather spend your time with? Zayden glanced around at the people in the bar. Almost none of them truly understood this type of interaction. In the year 2076, the idea of one woman being jealous of another, the concept of a relationship driven by physical desire, and perhaps even emotional attachment, the irrational reactions, the overwhelming emotions, everything unfolding before them was profoundly alien. Then Zayden spoke. "Are you supposed to be an example to these people, Elira? You're one of the members of the principal families, yet you're behaving like a lunatic. If I, or anyone else in this bar, had acted this way until now, the AI enforcement units would have arrested us immediately." The people in the bar looked toward Elira. Their expressions contained a mixture of disgust and fear. What Zayden had said was true. Everyone present knew it. Elira lowered her gaze and left. Zayden remained behind with Alaris. Alaris's smile had become impossibly wide. It almost looked diabolical. "Oh, Zayden, you're so strong. You stood against that crazy woman for me." Zayden looked at her and replied, "The difference between you and her is that she cares too much, while you pretend too much, Alaris." Alaris continued smiling as she met his gaze. "Come on, Zayden. I'm not pretending. I genuinely want you to be my first kiss." Without another word, Zayden walked out of the bar, leaving Alaris behind. She made no attempt to follow him. In front of a warehouse, where AI-controlled industrial systems were manufacturing Level 4 military robots, Leon Stryker stood alongside Daniel and another breathtaking woman. She wore a black leather suit that covered her from head to toe. Her hair blazed with an intense crimson hue, while her eyes possessed a shade of red that seemed almost deeper than Zayden's own. Combined with her extraordinarily pale skin, her appearance was striking enough to command attention instantly. This was Christine Kowalsko, a Level 5 augmented woman, and one of the most feared terrorists in existence. Christine normally operated alone, but Leon had already conditioned everyone to expect the impossible. Time and time again, he managed to gather the most unlikely individuals imaginable into a single team, and somehow made everything work. Daniel finally broke the silence. "So, Leon, what's the plan? Why don't we just bring the whole place down?" Leon answered immediately. "Because that accomplishes nothing. All the critical equipment and the robot production infrastructure are underground, and a facility like this has multiple emergency exits. If we destroy the surface structure, we only expose ourselves while failing to eliminate anything important." Christine joined the discussion. "I could go in, eliminate everyone, plant explosives, leave, and then we detonate the entire facility." Leon shook his head. "No." Then he continued. "Yo, an explosion risks broadcasting our position. Besides, before we destroy anything, I want to download absolutely every piece of information they have on these robots." Daniel's eyes widened dramatically. "Don't tell me you want to—" Leon interrupted him. The familiar psychotic grin spread across his face. "Exactly." His smile widened further. "We're about to equalize the numbers.